On a very important story, two military men, both held outside our nation. Thus far, only one has been freed. The efforts to free Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl has many wondering why our president has not called on the Mexican government to release Marine Sergeant Andrew Tahmooressi. Tahmooressi not a prisoner of war, but he served 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan, and several of his fellow Marines have come forward to recount his heroic actions on the battlefield. Andrew arrested at the Mexican border March 31st after he accidentally made a wrong turn into that nation with 3 weapons in his car. Since his arrest, friends who have visited him say he has been tortured and threatened with rape and death. Right now, there's a petition on the White House website asking President Obama to demand his release. It contains more than 100,000 online signatures, but thus far, nothing has been done. Joining us now in studio, Andrew's mother, his #1 advocate, Jill Tahmooressi. Jill, we so appreciate your time. Welcome to America's Forum.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be able to share Andrew's fight for freedom this morning.
First, to Andrew's situation, are you in contact with him regularly?
Yes, he is able to make collect phone calls, so I do hear from him at least once a day.
And when you talk to him once a day, has the situation improved? It was so horrific, and we can go into that, but what's going on right now?
Yes, he feels safe now. He's in El Hongo Federal Penitentiary where he is guarded 24/7, so that gives him confidence. And he's in a private cell, so he's not with the general populace. So he is confident that his physical safety is secured at this time, unlike how it was in the La Mesa State Penitentiary.
Well, Jill, if you could share for us what has been the more difficult situation for you, having your son fight in Afghanistan, not knowing his whereabouts on a day-in, day-out basis, or having your son in horrible conditions in his prison down in Mexico when he should be a free man?
By far, this experience has been the worst. It's been the most horrific, mainly because we're so not in control of the situation. It's so foreign. Andrew chose to be a Marine. He chose to fight alongside his Marine brothers for the safety of the world against terrorism. But now he's literally held captive. He mistakenly made one wrong turn. He is guilty of being a bad driver. He didn't follow the one graffiti-laden sign that was off to the side with no lights. He made that one wrong turn and has literally been held captive and tortured and treated like a prisoner of war, perhaps even worse. It's just been incomparable. So it's been just an absolute nightmare, worse than I've ever experienced with his 2 tours in Afghanistan.
And in his initial incarceration in a prison in Baja, California, the conditions were horrific. Could you share with us exactly what happened to Andrew in that initial arrest?
Well, initially he was placed in general populace, so there was not any protection or any special consideration for a citizen and a U.S. Marine. So he was literally in a cell meant for 6 men. He was there with 16, and he was, his life was threatened in that cell. He was threatened to be raped, tortured, and executed, and he was certain that he was going to die that night. So he made a phone call to me, and he said, "Mom, I'm not going to make it through the night, but whatever you do not come down and investigate or ask questions, because your life will also be harmed."
So you got this phone call.
Yes.
And you hear your son telling you he doesn't think he's going to make it through the night.
Yes.
I would have to imagine the emotions would be just incredibly difficult with which to deal.
Yes.
And the prayers would be nearly
Yes.
instantaneous.
Yes.
Can you take us through that difficult moment?
I honestly, the panic in his voice, controlled panic though, because I could hear like a riot in the background. It sounded like there must have been 100 men in that area, and it sounded like a riot. I could tell that he was trying to be as controlled with his voice as possible, but he was panicked. And he literally believed that he would be killed that night by the fellow inmates. Now, I don't recall doing this, but he told me that I prayed for him. And I know that I would have spoken the words of, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, protection and the angels. And he said that when he got off the phone, my prayer had given him the strength to escape out of that situation, to escape certain death into a safer part of the jail, which he did get into a different part of the jail, but unfortunately did not end up being safer. Now he was at the hands of the prison guards, who also chose to torture him.
And they stripped and shackled him.
They
to a
stripped
bed?
him naked, shackled, standing up overnight, denied him water for at least 24 hours. His shackles were so tight that it was drawing blood from his wrists and his ankles, stripped naked. And when he asked for water, it was denied for 24 hours, so he did not even dare ask for the shackles to be lightened if they wouldn't even give him water.
It's a blessing. He had Marine training and his
Yes.
background on the battlefield. Now, we know that has led to some challenges for Andrew. We'll get to those in just a second. But as we take a look in the here and now, and we're all here gathered on D-Day, and we think about the role that commanders-in-chief have played in our history. Just last week, an Army sergeant brought back to our side a controversial prisoner swap, and the president having the parents of that young man in the Rose Garden making a big announcement last Friday. Have you heard anything from the President of the United States, anything from the White House about the plight of your son?
No, I have not, and that's why May 1st I opened up my own petition on the whitehouse.gov petition site that President Obama developed for citizens to petition. So I opened up the petition, and at the threshold of 100,000 signatures, which thankfully America rallied behind, it's mandated that the White House respond. So I am waiting. I check every day for a response, but I have not heard from the White House, and they have not yet responded.
My old congressional colleague Matt Salmon was on this program. He said his legislative director called the White House to follow up, and that a White House official hung up the phone. In your situation, they haven't even picked up the phone to talk to you.
No, have not heard from the White House.
And Jill, has anyone who's working on your behalf, Congressman Salmon or anybody else, given you any indication as to why the White House would not answer your phone calls, or at least send a representative to talk to you or speak to you over the phone?
I know that it's baffling. I know that Representative Duncan Hunter has really been leading the charge, as well as Representative Salmon and others. But I think it's just baffling because Andrew is a current Marine. He, in fact, got muster orders to report to duty on June 14th. He can't report to duty on June 14th. It's an order by his brigadier general, but he can't report because he's in a Mexican jail.
Well, let's listen to our president. This was earlier this week at the G7 summit when he was talking about the importance of getting our military people back. Let's take a listen to President Obama.
I'm never surprised by controversies that are whipped up in Washington, right? That's par for the course. But I'll repeat what I said 2 days ago. We have a basic principle. We do not leave anybody wearing the American uniform behind. We had a prisoner of war whose health had deteriorated, and we were deeply concerned about, and we saw an opportunity and we seized it, and I make no apologies for that.
The president reiterating that we leave no one in uniform behind, and that we're going to do whatever it takes to get them back, and, quote, he makes no apologies for that. Given the lack of communication, given the lack of apparent involvement by this White House, does President Obama owe you an apology for ignoring your family's plight?
I believe he at least, I deserve an explanation for his inaction. I'm hopeful that perhaps in the background he's working on Andrew's behalf, but I know that Andrew is disappointed because President Obama is his commander-in-chief, and he would like President Obama to serve him as he served President Obama those 2 tours in Afghanistan.
We just want to be crystal clear on this, because during the time of your son's incarceration, what was it, last week, our Secretary of State was in Mexico.
Yes.
To your knowledge, did Secretary Kerry or anyone from the State Department reach out to the Mexican government concerning your son?
We were hoping that Secretary of State John Kerry would bring home Andrew. It would have been a perfect opportunity to bring him home. However, on the last day of his visit, I believe he raised the issue. There were those 3 words that were put out into print, into press. He raised the issue.
Well, Jill, just one last question here, and if there's a way that we can raise more awareness. I know you've been out there doing several interviews just like this one. We really appreciate your time, but how can we, anybody watching, anybody at home, help you in your effort to bring your son home?
Thank you. If they could call the Mexican ambassador, call the Mexican Consulate Services in Washington, D.C., asking that Andrew Sergeant Tahmooressi be released, or at least have an expedited due process. He does not have even a court date on record. So we definitely need Mexico to help us get Andrew released.
Well, Jill, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for being here. And also remind everybody to sign your petition.
Yes.
Is that on whitehouse.gov?
Yes, whitehouse.gov, We the People petition site. Thank you.
Very good.
Well, you see that, and you still wonder, how on earth can the administration be so tone deaf as not to reach out to this mom?
To at least not address it. I mean, you understand there's a different system in Mexico where the federal government doesn't always have the most control over regional governments where these types of things take place. The drug cartels sometimes hold more sway here, but at least address it publicly, especially considering what's going on and what has happened with Bo Bergdahl. We can't forget, you know, we hear so much talk about not leaving anyone behind. The circumstances might be different here in this case, but he's still a member. We heard a desperate plea from his mom, and we got to follow through up.
Sergeant Tahmooressi, a new attorney. They're going to announce that next week. We'll see if he gets his day in court and gets back home. We'd love to have your comments, and we're going to have more for you on D-Day next here on America's Forum.